Live from London, this is BBC News. In another reversal of policy, the US agrees to send anti-personnel landmines to Ukraine. The US closes its Kyiv embassy due to the threat of an attack. The pro-democracy media tycoon Jimmy Lai testifies for the first time in his national security trial in Hong Kong. We'll be speaking to a former executive of his news agency. And family and friends prepare to bid a final farewell to former One Direction member Liam Payne. Hello, I'm Lucy Hockings. Welcome to BBC News Now. 3 hours of fast-moving news, interviews and reaction. The BBC has confirmed reports that the Biden administration will soon provide Ukraine with anti-personnel landmines. The widely banned explosive devices will be used to help prevent Russian advances within Ukrainian territory. Officials said Kyiv had committed to not using them in built-up areas. Those advances by Russian troops in eastern Ukraine have been accelerating. Moscow has taken 6 times as much territory this year as in 2023. And very shortly, I will be joined by one of his associates, Jimmy Lai's associates, with an update on how he is doing and his thoughts on the trial as well. So stay with us for that. Do stay with us because still to come, the UN is warning northern Gaza is facing increasingly worsening conditions for survival because of a prolonged lack of aid. Now, this comes a day after the Israeli Prime Minister visited the Gaza Strip. We'll bring you the latest from Jerusalem. Welcome back. Benjamin Netanyahu has visited central Gaza, vowing to eliminate Hamas from the territory. The Israeli Prime Minister also announcing a $5 million reward and safe passage for anyone who brings out a hostage. 97 hostages are still believed to be in Gaza. Meanwhile, the UN says Palestinians living in northern Gaza are facing increasingly worsening conditions for survival because of a prolonged lack of aid. The UN's humanitarian office says that for more than 40 days, its attempts to support people have been denied or impeded by Israel. We'll be live in Jerusalem shortly with our correspondent Yolan Nell, but let's turn to Lebanon. We've been hearing from the US envoy Amos Hochstein, who has been speaking about his attempts to broker a truce between Israel and Hezbollah. Let's have a listen to what he had to say just a short time ago. Let's show you live pictures that we're getting from Beirut while I update you on the news that we're getting from there, and that is that the US envoy Amos Hochstein has been there talking to Hezbollah, and he says there has been additional progress in talks for a ceasefire deal. He is on his way now to Israel, where he will be meeting with the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. We understand that is due to happen tomorrow. The points of difference that remain include Israel's demand to act inside Lebanon if a deal is violated and the formation of an international monitoring mechanism. Some more on that story throughout the day. See you in a few minutes' time. Bye-bye. This is BBC News. The headlines. In another reversal of policy, the US agrees to send anti-personnel landmines to Ukraine. Donald Trump chooses Linda McMahon, the billionaire co-founder of WWE, to be his education secretary. And Rafael Nadal's glittering tennis career ends with defeat in the Davis Cup. Hello, I'm Lucy Hockings. Donald Trump has nominated Linda McMahon to be his education secretary, a post he said he ultimately wants to abolish. Now, McMahon has strong links to Mr. Trump. She is a co-chair of his White House transition team and has been a major campaign donor over the years. Victoria Gill in the Canadian Arctic near Churchill there with the polar bears. Let's bring you some of the day's other news now. A Thai woman accused of killing 14 people with cyanide has been sentenced to death. Ms. Sararat poisoned a friend's drink during a trip in April last year, then stole her belongings. The victim's family pushed for an autopsy, which revealed cyanide poisoning. This led to a wider investigation into suspicious deaths linked to Sararat over 8 years. Russia says President Putin has given more than 70 animals, that includes lions, bears, yaks and cockatoos, to Pyongyang Zoo. The delivery was accompanied by vets and a cabinet minister. Ties between Russia and North Korea has strengthened since the Ukraine war, with Pyongyang supplying Moscow with weapons and troops. The film Rust premieres in Poland today, 3 years after the cinematographer Halyna Hutchins was fatally shot on set. Alec Baldwin, who denied pulling the trigger, had involuntary manslaughter charges dropped in July. The premiere at the film festival in Turon will honour Hutchins, a fan of the event, with her family's support. Baldwin was not invited. Around the world and across the UK, this is BBC News. Welcome back. Palestinians in the West Bank are facing increasing attacks by Israeli settlers and violence from the IDF as the olive picking season approaches its peak. According to the UN this year, Palestinian farmers across the area are facing heightened risks due to access restrictions and also these widespread settler attacks, severely undermining their livelihoods and exposing them to physical harm. Wara Davis reports now from the village of Safa in the West Bank. Here is the church in Buckinghamshire, here in England, where family and friends have been gathering to pay their respects to Liam Payne. That funeral taking place in the next hour. We're not zooming in, we're not showing people arrive to the church out of respect for his family's wishes, but a full service is expected today. Sunny and cold in Buckinghamshire as those that loved him gather to remember the One Direction star, father, son and partner, Liam Payne. Live from London, this is BBC News. In another reversal of policy, President Biden agrees to send landmines to help win the war with Russia. Spain, Italy and Greece all join the US in closing Kyiv embassies due to the threat of an attack from the air. America's envoy says progress has been made towards a ceasefire in Lebanon. He's now heading to Israel. And the pro-democracy media tycoon Jimmy Lai testifies for the first time in his national security trial in Hong Kong. Hello, I'm Lucy Hockings. Welcome to BBC News Now. 3 hours of fast-moving news, interviews and reaction. The BBC has confirmed reports that the Biden administration will soon provide Ukraine with anti-personnel landmines. The widely banned explosive devices will be used to help prevent Russian advances within Ukrainian territory. Officials said Kyiv had committed to not using them in built-up areas. Those advances by Russian troops in eastern Ukraine have been accelerating. Moscow has taken 6 times as much territory this year as in 2023. Stay with us here on BBC News Now. Coming up, the UN is warning northern Gaza is facing increasingly worsening conditions for survival because of a prolonged lack of aid. Now, this all comes a day after Benjamin Netanyahu visited the Strip. We'll bring you the latest from Jerusalem. Around the world and across the UK, this is BBC News. Welcome back. Let's take you to Lebanon now. The US envoy Amos Hochstein has been speaking about his attempts to broker a truce between Israel and Hezbollah. He said additional progress has been made regarding a ceasefire. Let's take a listen. To stay with us, coming up, we'll bring you the very latest from Ukraine. You're watching BBC News. This is BBC News, the headlines. Days after allowing Ukraine to use long-range missiles donated by the US, President Biden agrees to send anti-personnel landmines to help in the war with Russia. Carmaker Ford announces plans to slash 4,000 jobs across Europe, most of them in Germany and the UK, part of a major cost-cutting programme. The pro-democracy media tycoon Jimmy Lai testifies for the first time in his national security trial in Hong Kong. And as the olive harvest approaches its peak, farmers in the West Bank tell the BBC they face both restrictions and the fear of violence. Hello, I'm Lucy Hockings. We start with some breaking news. The car maker Ford has announced plans to cut 4,000 jobs across Europe, most of them in Germany and the UK. This is part of a major cost-cutting programme. Like other car makers, Ford has been struggling with weak sales and growing competition, as well as strict environmental legislation. Ford says the car industry is experiencing unprecedented disruption. Among the challenges it's facing are intense competition, especially from Chinese brands, strict new environmental rules and weaker than expected sales of electric cars. Now, the company plans to cut, we understand, 2,900 jobs in Germany, 800 in the UK and several hundred more across Europe. Let's bring you some of the day's other news now. A Thai woman accused of killing 14 people with cyanide has been sentenced to death. Ms. Sararat poisoned a friend's drink during a trip in April last year, then stole her belongings. The victim's family pushed for an autopsy, which revealed cyanide poisoning. This led to a wider investigation into suspicious death linked to Ms. Sararat over 8 years. Russia says President Putin has given more than 70 animals, and they include lions, bears, yaks and cockatoos, to Pyongyang Zoo. The delivery was accompanied by vets and a cabinet minister. Ties between Russia and North Korea have strengthened since the Ukraine war, with Pyongyang supplying Moscow with weapons and troops. The film Rust premieres in Poland today. It's 3 years after the cinematographer Halyna Hutchins was fatally shot on set. Alec Baldwin, who denied pulling the trigger, had involuntary manslaughter charges dropped in July. The premiere at the film festival in Torun will honour Hutchins, who was a fan of the event, with her family's support. Baldwin was not invited. Do stay with us around the world and across the UK. This is BBC News. Palestinians in the occupied West Bank are facing a growing number of attacks from Israeli settlers and violence from the IDF as the olive picking season approaches its peak. According to the UN, Palestinian farmers across this area are facing heightened risks because of access restrictions and also widespread settler attacks. And that's severely undermining their livelihoods and exposing them to physical harm. Maura Davis reports now from the village of Safa in the West Bank. Great tribute there from Manu, and congratulations and thanks to the wonderful Rafael Nadal. Stay with me. Live from London, this is BBC News. And another reversal of policy. President Biden agrees to send Ukraine anti-personnel landmines to help in the war with Russia. Spain, Italy and Greece all join the US in closing their embassies in Kyiv because of the threat of an air attack. Car maker Ford announces plans to slash 4,000 jobs across Europe, all part of a major cost-cutting programme. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu visits Gaza, vowing to eliminate Hamas from the territory. And family, friends and former bandmates bid a final farewell at the funeral of One Direction star Liam Payne. Hello, I'm Lucy Hockings. Welcome to BBC News Now. The BBC has confirmed reports that the Biden administration will soon provide Ukraine with anti-personnel landmines. The widely banned explosive devices will be used to help prevent Russian advances within Ukrainian territory. Officials said Kyiv had committed to not using them in built-up areas. Those advances by Russian troops in eastern Ukraine have been accelerating. Moscow has taken 6 times as much territory this year as in 2023. We're going to have more on those figures as well when we have the business programme coming to us from New York. Around the world and across the UK, this is BBC News. Welcome back. Family and friends of One Direction star Liam Payne are attending the singer's funeral. The private service taking place in Buckinghamshire, northwest of London. His girlfriend, Kate Cassidy, and the Girls Aloud singers Kimberly Walsh and Nicola Roberts are among the guests. The 31-year-old musician died last month when he fell from a third-floor balcony of a Buenos Aires hotel. Let's speak to our music correspondent, Mark Savage, who joins us now from Buckinghamshire. An incredibly sad day, Mark. What's been happening there? We're going to show you some live pictures now that we're getting from the Lebanese capital, Beirut, because we're getting a few new updates on what Amos Hochstein, who is the US envoy in the region, has called progress when it comes to a ceasefire deal between Israel and Hezbollah. These efforts are really intensifying at the moment, and we know that Mr. Hochstein is on his way to Israel to speak to Benjamin Netanyahu. But Israel says that any Lebanon deal must grant it freedom to act against Hezbollah, and in return, the head of Hezbollah at the moment says a halt to fighting relies on the Israeli response to these talks. So we're keeping across these developments for you from the Middle East. Do stay with us here on BBC News.
Live from New York at the opening bell, this is Business Today. A holding pattern on Wall Street as markets await results from AI chip giant NVIDIA after the close.
Teaching robots.
Traders are braced for a $300 billion swing in the company's value in either direction that could determine what happens to global markets in the coming days. Also coming up, electric shock, Ford to cut 4,000 jobs in Europe, blaming disappointing demand for EVs. And Trump's trade warrior, the president-elect, picks Wall Street giant Howard Lutnick as Commerce Secretary, signaling a tough stance on China and a boost for crypto. Welcome to Business Today, live from New York. I'm Ritika Gupta. It's a muted opening on Wall Street this Wednesday, with investors on hold ahead of results from AI chipmaker NVIDIA after the bell. How well the tech giant is performing will be key to sustaining its record-breaking rally that has seen it triple its value this year to more than $3 trillion, as well as the wider market. Over in the traditional economy, though, shares in retailer Target have plunged after its holiday sales forecasts disappointed. And in other news, US media giant Comcast is to spin off its NBC Universal cable television networks, which include MSNBC and CNBC. Under the plan, Comcast will keep NBC Universal's broadcast TV network, its film and television studios, theme parks, and streaming platform. Shares of 7&I, the Japanese owner of 7-Eleven, have surged on reports the retailer's founding family wants to take it private by early next year. According to NHK, the family is in the process of raising over $51 billion to complete the buyout. 7&I has been under pressure to fend off a $47 billion takeover bid from Canada's Alimentation Couche-Tard. Milan's Via Monte Napoleone has become the world's most expensive shopping street, beating rivals including New York's Upper Fifth Avenue and London's New Bond Street. According to analysis by real estate firm Cushman & Wakefield, rent for the street in Italy's financial capital surged 11% this year to €20,000 per square metre. It's been driven by fierce competition from luxury retailers amid rise in affluent tourists. And that is all we have time for. Do stay with us here on BBC News. Thanks for watching.
Hello there, I'm Ollie Foster with the latest sports news. Rafael Nadal says that he's leaving tennis with the peace of mind that he's left a legacy, which is not just a sporting one, but also a personal one. It was a highly emotional night in Malaga as Nadal brought an end to his professional career. Lots more on the BBC Sport website. Let's hand you back to Lucy in London.
Ollie, thank you so much. There's a huge amount of excitement amongst superfans because Wicked, the movie, is about to open in cinemas, and the author of the novel says he's desperately happy after seeing the movie version before its official release on Friday. Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo star as Glinda, and Elphaba as their unlikely but profound friendship develops in the land of Oz. Well, there's a lovely synergy there, Ben, isn't there?
Yes. Gregory,
Very lovely to talk to you. Thank you so much for joining us. So many people looking forward to watching the movie when it comes out this weekend. Good to have you with us here on BBC News. Matthew is here next. Bye-bye.
Hello there. It's staying cold through the rest of this week. There's a risk of some further snow and icy conditions.